Hello and welcome to Shuffling Notes. This is a channel where we are discussing music and we're discussing artists, we're discussing more songs, discussing what the songs are saying and just kind of overdoing it by a little bit. I'm your co-host Razi,
And I'm your co host, Prankit.
and we will be discussing Velvet Underground today, which was an experimental group that was in the 1960s. And it was led by Lou Reed, who was into the music scene since he was a teenager. He even recorded a song when he was a teenager with a group named Shades. Then he went on and got this band together while he was working I think, as a songwriter in some record label. And then he got this group together. They started doing some live performances, some songs for experimental movies, and before they launched their first album by their name Velvet Underground, like Lou Reed had a few songs already composed in his head. Some of them we hear in the track list, and some of them we hear later in his work. And what do you have to say about Velvet Underground?
Yeah, I mean, I think Velvet Underground is sort of a new one for me. So I have heard of them and I've heard some of their songs, but I really don't know much about the band or exactly what sort of music they do. So, I mean, as we'll go through the track list, there's one or two songs I had heard before. But I didn't know it was the Velvet Underground either. It's just a song that I've heard before. So, yeah, this was a very fresh album for me and an interesting experience.
I would actually agree with you. It's it's really not in the market. The artist, even the songs, they're not really heard of, but they've got like so much happening within. And you know, I think they're just wanting to say something in terms of sounds, different elements in each of their songs. And well, I guess we'll get to know that as we go through the track list,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll just overanalyze it, as you say.
Yeah. Well, in the case of Velvet Underground, I feel like we might be underanalyzing it because it's just so rich, like the lyrics and the music. I feel like there's so much to take apart, and it being a fresh album. So, like with the previous ones we've covered, there've been albums I've heard a lot of times. So I've had lots of thoughts about them over the years. But this one being a fresh one, I feel like this will be one of the first albums, perhaps, that we're underanalyzing, or perhaps I'm underanalyzing.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you, and it's something that I came across while I was reading about Velvet Underground was even David Bowie was an admirer of the the group, and
Ah, interesting.
at the
Yeah.
time,
Well,
and then
yeah.
there were a lot
I
of
think all like the experimentalists in music getting together and
it's a party.
yeah,
And
that's a party I'd want to be at.
so we will go through the song list, which starts with Candy Says.
Yeah.
It's just a smooth introduction to the album, which is going to come up with like a lot more packed in, and it's a very subtle introduction of the experimental music that they're going for, like the guitar riffs being following the same pattern, and the instruments going the same way, and you sort of get hypnotized into it.
Yeah. It's like it's smooth but also like melancholic at the same.
Yeah,
It pretty much the whole album is, and I think as you're saying, it's sort of nice introduction to the kind of music that's gonna follow.
yeah, it's soft, so you really feel attached to it. And it's just something he's saying, like Candy says. And then I mean it goes very deeply poetic, but
Yeah, very
I mean
philosophical.
that's
I think it
that's
Yeah, so I'm not sure if you're aware. I did look the song up, and apparently like there's a lot of history behind the song. It's about someone called Candy Darling, but I didn't really go into the history. But I think if you just sort of just the lyrics themselves, I mean, there's like elements of like self-loathing, like I've come to hate my body and all that it requires in this world. But then that sort of self-loathing is, I guess, driven by the world, and you know, elements of like unable to relate to other, sort of wanting to fit in and things. So it's got that very sort of almost like a depressing tone, but at the same time it's sort of very relatable. And I think, you know, without really knowing the sort of all the history behind, you know, how this song came to be, I just think by itself it's still very relatable to a lot of people.
I think it's with all respect to the song, it's like a cry in the shower kind of song, you know.
That is the perfect way to put it. Cry in the shower.
That's just how it goes, and you just
Yeah.
maybe just standing there, leaning on the wall, sitting down. I don't know, just being there, and it soothes in.
Got a music video right there. But no, yeah, that's perfectly, I think, at least the way I see the song and the way you just described it, I think it just describes it perfectly for me.
So yeah, the next song is What Goes On, and it's like What Goes On is where the album starts the engine and just drives you
It's a
straight
bit more rock.
their pioneer music, and like, you know, of course you get introduced to noise rock, which I don't know if it was the first time or not, but it was one of the first times of noise rock being introduced in a commercially released album.
Okay. Yeah, this was one of the songs I had heard before, and so that's when I was listening to it. I was like, oh yeah, I remember hearing this before, but I didn't know it was the Velvet Underground. It was from this sort of self-titled album. But again, I think just going by the lyrics, I feel like the song could be sort of either like about psychedelics or like about a breakup, or maybe a bit of both. But it's again one of those things where I guess the intention of the artist doesn't matter as much, because just of how relatable the lyrics can be. If you're coming from different points of view, at that point it doesn't really matter, you know, originally whether it was written just about psychedelics, it was written just about some breakup.
That and of course there's a word I read. It was called sadomasochism. Like that's the kind of introduction of lyrics and music and everything combined for this album, and that's what they were heading for. Sadomasochism is basically like sexual orientation with sadistic and masochist feelings, both mixed.
Yeah.
So, you know, it just...
Yeah. Well, yeah, they do go very deep in some of the other songs as well into that sort of realm, I think. But I was just going to say, you know, you mentioned sort of noise rock and then sort of the music. And I think it's just such a great combination of like organs and electric guitar again. Like you'd expect it to be like a lead electric guitar, but it's organs. Yeah. And you know that instrumental bit they have, which is like a long sort of interlude almost. It kind of just sounds like they're having fun. Like you've got someone on the guitar just jamming, and you got someone on the organs, and they're just going through like the chord progressions, and they're just jamming. That's all it is. You know, they're not like it's just like a bunch of friends. And I guess that's what experimental music is sometimes, which is like just get friends together and just start playing something. The other person just starts jamming with them. You know, the person comes up with the organs, start playing the organs, and that's what it really feels like. So it feels like a song that would be amazing to watch live. You know, just watching them perform might be, you know, might be a cool experience for those of us lucky that might have been able to see them.
Yeah, so the next song is Some Kind of Love, which is like well, like where I think that's the first song where we hear Lou Reed himself. You know.
Yeah, I think What Goes On was Lou Reed as well. I know Candy Says is sang by something like Yule or something.
I read that.
I think What Goes On was Lou Reed as well, but I could be wrong. But yeah, Some Kind of Love is also.
Some Kind of Love is definitely Lou Reed. It's Lou Reed is, you know, his voice is very encapsulating, right? Like, he's saying his words himself, and he's saying it in the right tone.
Sometimes he's talking more of singing, and
Yeah.
it's almost like a sort of a voice acting sort of analogy where like it's not just about hitting the right tunes and the melody, but it's also about how you express
Yeah.
the words, which I think is
So in like Some Kind of Love, he is exploring the endless possibilities of love using his
yeah.
words. And
So I found this online. Apparently, I mean, it's a simple song, and then even he introduced it in a live show as like the song is called Some Kind of Love. It's a dialogue between a guy named Tom and a woman named Margarita,
yeah.
if I'm pronouncing that correctly. But he's just trying to drink her like tequila, and she doesn't like being salt thrown over her shoulder. That's what the song's about. But it's essentially just a conversation between like he just met some girl at a bar, and then she's just telling him about like never, always take your chances.
Yeah, so
with
I
love.
guess
Like, never let any type of love pass you by.
I guess he is representing Tom in the song. Like, Margarita tells Tom.
Yeah. Well, he says both, right? Because I think in the lyrics he's like Margarita says, and then it's like Tom says,
Yeah.
and then he sort of sings what they say. But it's very much, and the lyrics are very philosophical, and I guess going into the overanalyzing part of this, like a lot of the more philosophical texts, like if you go back to like Plato or even like religious texts, they're generally a dialogue. So like you generally have sometimes like a mentor-mentee sort of situation where the person asks them, but what about this? And then they give it some wise answer, and then it's like, but what about this? So a lot of religious texts and philosophical texts, I shall say, are sort of a dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
And at that level, I think this song feels like that because it has a lot of, again, like philosophy. There's that line, between thought and expression lies a lifetime. So there's a lot of like philosophical ideas coming through. At the same time, it is just about different types of love and always always taking a chance for love, for a relationship. But if it ends, you move on to the next one. But there's elements of that sort of.
I mean, it's the lyrics are like so deep, I think.
Yeah.
Where it's like, Margarita tells Tom that some kind of love is like French novels.
Yeah.
Where you can understand like the language of love and mixing it together, and then like French novels where you're combining absurd and vulgar, and then you get back, like you get snapped back, and then you're like, okay.
Yeah.
So it's quite deep for I think someone who's getting introduced to probably Velvet Underground over here.
Yeah, it is weirdly enough, it is one of the more sort of optimistic songs. Like it's less melancholic compared to some of the other tracks. It is more optimistic. Like don't give, like, just try it. You meet someone, if it's going somewhere, don't like get anxious about it. Just go for it, and they're all different kinds of love.
There's happiness for sure, but there's a feeling of abandonment.
Oh, definitely, yeah. There is that. You can't get away with that, I think, with the writing that I'm seeing from Velvet Underground. There needs to be some sort of pulling you back to reality a little bit.
So the next song is Pale Blue Eyes, which is it's a request for a lover to linger on, even though it concludes with defining their love as a sin. Like that's how
right at the end, right?
Yeah.
This was again one of the songs I had heard before, Pale Blue Eyes, and again I read this online that apparently the song is actually about someone whose eyes were hazel, and I think it was, I'm just trying to see in my notes here, I think it was like Reed's first love, but at the time she was married to another man. Right. So you can see like the sin, and then I guess again the intention of the writer, I guess, doesn't matter as much now because of just, again, it's relatable in different ways. But I always try and find out when I see some interesting lyrics, like what were they actually writing about, It's just interesting.
Where's the music? I think.
Yeah. Where's the music? I think that's a better way to put it.
Yeah.
Wow, you're very eloquent today, Razi.
Thank you. I try. And the next song is Jesus.
Yeah.
Or if I can say it, more dramatically, like Jesus.
Yeah.
Jesus.
As long as it's not blasphemous. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's like, I don't know, it's a small prayer in a song in a prayer, something there.
It does have like a sort of more of like a desperate feeling to it, like either desperate for like direction in life, or like you could say like forgiveness or redemption or whatever it is. It's like
Help me.
if you're in that moment of desperation and you listen to this song, whatever it is that's putting you in that corner, you would, I guess, if you are religious at some level, it would sort of you would feel a very kind of, and I don't think you necessarily need to be like Christian or something. I just think it is universal in that sense of like, give me some direction, help me out. The other thing is this song and some of the other songs, as well. Weirdly enough, for some of the way they sing it and some of the music, it's sort of reminiscent of Simon and Garfunkel to me, who were also releasing albums at the same time. So they had like an album out in 65 and I think in 67 or 69 or whatever. But the way sometimes you have like the two vocals and the guitars layered, it sort of reminded me a little bit of Simon and Garfunkel.
Jesus specifically reminded me of John Lennon, like his.
That's true as well. Yeah. I see it.
He had such songs full of redemption, and this, I don't know, it just gave me a vibe of John Lennon. I'm sure. I mean, obviously,
yeah,
it's not at all John Lennon. And then the next song is "Beginning to See the Light," with like heavy alternative rock. What do you think about it?
This is one of, like, I've heard this song a few different times, this one and the next one, and I mean, obviously, I think on the surface it's a bit like about enlightenment, like, oh, I see the truth now, and I don't know, there's again lots of elements that are relatable in different ways, like being stuck in a system, like working hard, not getting it right, and then sometimes you have a eureka moment, like, wait, I'm doing this wrong, or like, wait, I'm living my life wrong, And you could apply it to different things. You could apply it to relationships as well, where you're just trying and the relationship's not working, and then you take a step back and you're like, wait. And there's, like I've got some lyrics that there are problems in these times, but none of them are mine. So he's like got life figured out, like you deal with that. I've already sort of, dealt with it. And I mean, like there's a lot to dissect. Like I've got lines here which is like, he says, I met myself in a dream, and then after that he's like, here comes two of you, which will I choose? One is black, one is blue. And I guess the sort of indication here is black and blue, there's both not good options for him. And I think maybe that's how he understood, like in life you only have two options, black and blue, so there's no point fretting about it, just chill out and live life on your own terms. Wine in the morning, breakfast at night.
Black and blue, just
very interesting song, I think. And like I say, I think everyone, when they hear it, maybe they see like they connect to it in a different way, or they find something different in it.
Yeah, I mean, all songs are quite
open to interpretation.
And so the next song is "I'm Set Free," and the beginning of the song reminds me of "Heroin," which is another song by I think Velvet Underground only, and it's got the same kind of start to it, and it's a different song altogether. Heroin was a song that he had already written before he started publishing his music, and
could be influenced.
Then he finally came on to writing Heroin, which was much later. But over here, "I'm Set Free" is just like a good classic rock. I guess just going back a little bit into that over analyzing part, it felt ironic that this song comes after the last song, because I feel like, when he says "I'm set free," he says it very like ironically, I'm set free only to like find a new illusion. So like I think the previous song was like that optimistic enlightenment, like
I'm gonna live it on my own terms because nothing really matters. So I'm gonna do what I want to do. While this one is sort of a darker side, it's more like the futility of life. You know, like what's the point? You know, if I'm gonna, it's just all illusion. I'm just moving on from one to another. So I feel like the two songs, this one and the one before, they sort of connect in a way, but they're like the opposite sides of enlightenment. So it's like if beginning to see the light was the high, this is the low. You know, going back to like, I guess, psychedelics and so on. So it almost feels like that. It's like they have the high where it's like, you know what, I can see everything. This is it, you know, nothing means anything. I'll do what I want to do. And then it's like, well, nothing means anything. So like, what's the point? I'm just going to move on to something meaningless. So I'm set free only to like find a new illusion. I just thought it's an interesting way the two songs work. But yeah, great music. Again, some nice instrumental parts as well.
Yeah. And I think
short
both,
songs.
Jesus and I'm Set Free use like this classic rock harmonies in the choruses. So the next song is That's the Story of My Life. It's like a well-told story of, probably Reed's life, maybe.
I heard it and I couldn't really decipher it. So then I was like, let me just Google. And then there is a lot of history behind this song. And I have to say, I still don't get it. This is one of those songs I just could not crack. And I'm sure if I spent more time online, perhaps looking at maybe other people, you know, people have written about it. I don't really know. I just I Googled the name to see if there's like anything on Wikipedia. And there was like some information on Wikipedia about some photographer and this and that. But I think it's one of those songs that are so personal to him. You know, maybe if I hear it in a different mood, I'll have that eureka moment and I'll be like, oh yeah, I can relate to it. But you know, it's simple. I think 4 or 5 lines that he just repeats throughout.
It's like I mean, it goes deeper with like that's the difference between right and wrong. And
right and wrong.
Billy said that.
But the words are dead.
Both those words are dead. I mean, the way the music progresses to this part is, you know, it makes you feel something. I don't know.
Yeah,
I can't put it.
No, you're definitely right there with the music. I just couldn't get. Yeah, I don't know. Again, is it trying to point out the futility of like the story of my life? This is, you know. Because the way he just repeats it over and over again, I couldn't really decipher what it is that could be that he's trying to say. But
it's just,
just is.
All of them are just more. They're just much more than just the name and the music to it.
Yeah.
So the next song is The Murder Mystery, where, you know, there's just so many people talking, trying to solve things, and in an experimental way, doing a mysterious experiment, and someone seeing a murder while someone's seeing a mystery, and you know, it's a whole collaboration of sounds.
Oh, so many elements. And I think as short as the previous song was, this one is super long, right? It's like 8 minutes or something.
I mean, there's so much said in the song, and
and it's like a very interesting use of like stereo. So like you got someone saying something in one ear, and then you got someone else, and then even in the chorus you got someone singing something in one ear and someone else singing something else in the other ear. But they kind of, it's almost like reminiscent of like, you know, when you have like jazz music, like improvisational. But this is obviously very sort of experimental. I've written like psychedelic is the word I feel like to describe this. And you know, it's very much, you just sit down, close your eyes, you listen to it, and you know, those 8 minutes can feel like a second, or they could feel like you've been listening for it forever. But it's very interesting. I think it's one of the more standout songs for me in the album. It's one of the ones I see myself going back to quite a lot. Just because of how different it is. It's like subverting expectations, really.
But going back to songs After Hours is the song that I would go back to. It's a very reminiscent, reverie kind of song. You know, you can whenever I am listening to it, it's like a 5 to 8 year old just in his half pants, just jumping in a puddle or something, and
Yeah.
that's how sweet
It's got
the
a
music is.
it's got a very cheery tune,
Yeah.
but then the lyrics again are very sort of about isolation and closing yourself off.
Exactly.
But then the tune is so like not upbeat, but I guess you could say upbeat, but so like cheery and happy that you'd expect it to be a love song, or you'd expect it to be like even like one of those like Jason Mraz, like Life is Wonderful type songs. But the lyrics again, they kind of take you down into the darkness, while the music keeps it very catchy and interesting combination.
Like Lou Reed being the lead of the band, and I think Nico, the German singer who's part of the group,
No idea.
like they are the two who have continued other albums as well, while others sort of dropped out, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But it's their music. So Nico was someone who was really experimental with how she wants to express something, and adding sounds, adding more, as it was put, like avant-garde music, I think.
Oh yeah. Avant-garde. I think I don't know how you pronounce that. Yeah, like cutting edge.
Yeah, like
now you
coming
confused
up
me
with
how
new
you
stuff,
pronounce it.
making stuff on your own, just putting it out.
Yeah.
So like
there's sort of just experimenting by yourself.
Even After Hours is, I think it's Nico only who's singing.
After Hours reminds me, I think I told you there's a Hindi song, Sham Hai Koi, by what's the guy's name? Do you remember the singer's name? Amit something. But regardless, the tune and the way like some of the melody goes, I don't know if you've heard them back to back, but it's very reminiscent, almost like
I think it may be like if you speed up, speed down either of the song, you might catch.
They have a similar sort of like the guitar rhythm combined with the tune of like where they drop certain words off, like because they have like both of them have like a strange like a minor note they hit when they drop off like the main verse or whatever you have what you have you, and I don't know why it's very reminiscent. It is a different song, but like some of the elements of the music, they feel inspired by something like After Hours to me. I know it's one of those things where sometimes you hear a resemblance and no one else does. But if anyone else watching this feels there's a similarity, let me know in the comments.
Oh.
If you don't, then don't comment. Only comment if you agree with me.
Well,
no, I'm kidding. You can
agree.
You can comment. I'll just moderate them and make sure they don't show up. But
so
yeah.
What would be your final thoughts on Velvet Underground?
I think it's like very much, I would say, at least at this point, I feel like a lot of the songs and the content of the album is sort of about the futility of life almost. And that's where like the melancholic sort of nature of the songs sort of, I think, lyrics come in. Mm-hmm. And, there's some very unique sounds. But like the songs that I have gone back and listened multiple times is The Murder Mystery, What Goes On, After Hours, and Pale Blue Eyes, like in no particular order. It's just those are the ones I've remembered the most, and I kind of go back and I'm like, oh, listen to this one. Since I discovered the album, which was only like a week or so ago.
I think all of my 2020 was, like 2020 was for the whole worldwide. It was like a new age, and 2020 was when I started listening to Velvet Underground on repeat. Also, because who I was living with, they also liked such experimental music, and it just kind of fit into the situation because we don't know what we're doing, we don't know what's going to happen, we don't know. And it just fit into 2020 quite well, and I've just been like
I mean, a lot of the lyrics are sort of perfectly fitted for the whole sort of pandemic and quarantine and stuff, so I don't blame you there. I think it's definitely. And like I said, the lyrics are so deep and so rich that I think I'm sure there's so much left to decipher that we haven't even touched upon in this. Like, I'm sure they're diehard Velvet Underground fans. If they watch this, I'll be like, come on, you didn't even mention this. So, but
I mean, there's a
I guess,
lot that we didn't mention yet. So, I mean, there'll be
yeah,
more, right?
yeah. I mean, for me, it was really a perspective of like seeing this from like fresh eyes, because I didn't know anything about the band as such, or like what was the story. And then it's only after I heard the songs I wanted to go back and actually look up some of the songs and see, like, this one's kind of interesting. Like, I wonder what this is about.
I mean, at the end, all the songs are quite thought of. Like, there's more to just realizing and expressing it. It's realizing and maybe finding new ways to match it with, or make yourself feel better, maybe.
Yeah.
So
Different ways to relate.
yeah.
In the shower, like you said. Crying alone. Yeah.
Well, it's a good song though. I mean,
oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Everyone who's listening, it's a good song. Please do listen
Yeah.
to it over and over again.
Yeah.
Maybe even cry in the shower. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's a good song to cry on. Right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think that sort of sums it up, and we can hope for more discussion on the lyrics in the next few ones.
In the future. Yeah. So, I mean, thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time with a brand new album and a brand new artist. And if you have any recommendations of who we should listen to, please let us know in the comments. But we'll probably come across them over the course of however long, for eternity, that we're going to drop in these videos for. So see you guys.
See you. And I think both Jesus and I'm Set Free use like this classic rock harmonies in the choruses, like like people sort of singing together. There's backing vocals, there's lead vocals, and there's cancel.